Discover the incredible act that transformed the Millionaire's blind children in 30 days. Jack Thompson stood in the school hallway, mop in hand, eyes alive with purpose. Every corner he cleaned felt like an opportunity, every errant piece of trash was a tiny victory. He smiled, thinking of his two blind children, Emma and Noah, who were home learning to navigate their world without sight but with spirit. Each laugh echoed down the hall as he daydreamed about their adventures. But deep inside, worry gnawed at him like a pit bull, bills loomed large, and time trickled away like sand through his fingers. But Jack was nothing if not resilient. Just a few streets away, Richard Blake trapped himself in his lavish mansion, a fortress of wealth that couldn't shield him from the sudden illness that rendered him helpless. Richard was once seen as a king in this suburban town, an embodiment of the American dream, yet his empire now felt hollow. His blind children, Anna and Mark, were blissfully unaware of their father's turmoil. Richard used to walk them through a world colored by his riches, now, he couldn't even guide himself through their darkness. The stories between these two families couldn't be more different. Jack poured every ounce of soul into cultivating independence in Emma and Noah. He taught them the value of hard work, the exhilarating joy of laughter, and above all, love. With his neighbors watching, he fostered a community spirit, organizing barbecue nights where people lent their hands and hearts to share their stories, their struggles. But news of Richard's crisis rippled through the neighborhood, more gossip than concern, pride clouded the air. Should Jack extend a hand or remain distant? The neighborhood buzzed with murmurs of support mingled with doubts. As undercurrents swirled, Jack made his decision. He would not let his pride keep him from showing kindness. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jack offered friendship to the Blakes, misunderstandings frayed shallow connections. Richard's disdain for Jack's humble ways clashed with Jack's hard-fought dignity. Community events became battlegrounds of assumptions, each man digging in their heels. The disparity stung, Jack's moral compass against Richard's privilege not just distrust, but a lessons clash revealing the helplessness they both fought against. Yet, through torn edges of misunderstanding, a soft moment emerged when Jack courageously invited Anna and Mark to join Emma and Noah in their community gatherings. Something unexpected sparked in the air. Curiosity overpowered skepticism. Could wealth provide solutions to the burdens of blindness? Or would love, laughter, and community triumph? As both families inch closer to connection, a heart-wrenching revelation threatens to unravel it all. The clock ticked louder, the stakes higher. Would pride divide them, or could they finally find common ground? The shadows loomed, and the audience held their breath, wondering just how deep the bonds could run. The question remained, could a friendship unravel the complexities of their very different worlds, or would they remain forever split by circumstance? Jack spent the following week anxiously preparing for the gathering at the local park. He envisioned the laughter of children dancing through the air, the aromas of grilling burgers wafting on the breeze, and the bittersweet edge of uncertainty tinged with hope. The invitation was more than just a gesture, it was a lifeline. He desperately wanted to bridge the gap between their worlds. On the day of the event, the sun radiated warmth as if the universe itself conspired in their favor. Jack set up tables adorned with checkered tablecloths while his children, Emma and Noah, giggled over freshly made lemonade. He caught glances at Richard and his children from across the park, unsure if they would show. When Richard finally arrived, he kept a tight grip on the kids' hands. Anna and Mark, energetic and excited, were a stark contrast to their father's tense demeanor. Jack smiled widely, despite the waves of nervousness crashing in his chest. "Welcome. We're so glad you came," he called out, banishing the unease with his unwavering warmth. Richard was silent for a moment, seeming to gauge the scene before him. "Thank you," he finally replied, his voice unsteady. The four children wasted no time breaking away to discover the wonders of the park. Emma and Noah had been well prepared with their white canes, while the Blakes pulled out their guide dogs, eager to join in the fun.as the children played. The adults found themselves side by side at the table, each feeling the weight of their own hesitations. Jack offered Richard a plate piled high with barbecue. "Tell me, what do you think your kids will love most about this?" Richard blinked, momentarily confused. It struck Jack how little they truly knew about each other's lives. They love to explore," Richard replied, his voice softer, almost vulnerable. Jack nodded, feeling a surge of understanding. "Exploration is key, right? I always try to encourage Emma and Noah to discover new things, even in their world." He watched Richard as a flicker of realization dawned on him, a change in his expression that hinted at a deep internal struggle. Temptation hovered heavy in the air. Richard was just beginning to ask a question when the laughter of the children pierced the moment. "Hey, Dad! Look!" Anna shouted, her joy infectious as she led her brother towards the makeshift obstacle course Jack had set up. Ignoring his own instincts for a moment, Richard stood up, a mix of astonishment and admiration washing over him. "How did you do all this?" he asked, captivated. Jack shrugged, a chuckle escaping him. "Just a little planning, a bit of heart. We all need a little joy." The truth was, it was more than just planning. There was love sewn into every detail. As the afternoon wore on, barriers started to crumble. Richard watched Emma help Noah through the course, encouraging him enthusiastically, and for the first time, he felt a pang of something unfamiliar: hope. It sparked a longing within him to learn how to foster that same spirit in his own children. But then, just as he was beginning to relax, a call came from Richard's phone, shattering the moment. Richard hesitated, looking torn, but his expression revealed the unmistakable urgency. A deep-seated panic laced his voice. "I have to take this," he nearly whispered, stepping away from the table. Jack watched as Richard paced, anxiety rippling through him once more. What was happening? Suddenly, the weight of the moment smashed back down. The illusion of connection toppled by the looming shadows of reality. Would this brief unity last, or would Richard retreat back into the fortress of his isolation? As Jack clenched his fists, he felt the walls creeping back, and a sense of dread coiled around his heart. What awaited Richard on the other end? And would Jack's newfound friendship withstand the pressures of the life Richard had built around himself? Jack felt his heart race as he watched Richard pace a few steps away, shoulders tense and eyes focused on the phone, as if it held the answers to questions neither of them had dared to ask. The sounds of laughter filtering through the park blended with the rhythmic thuds of Richard's worried footsteps. Each echo seemed to whisper fears Jack could hardly voice. What if this was just another false start? "Dad! Come on!" Anna's call broke through the air, her voice a bright spot, a contrast to the tension infused with Richard's worry. Both children were lingering on the edge of the obstacle course, waiting for their father to join in the fun. Jack's heart sank a bit. He could sense the excitement in Emma and Noah, both unaware of their father's growing anxiety. But would Richard let anxiety stop him? Richard cleared his throat, glancing back at the children, his face shifting to mask the panic with a hint of indignation. "Just a second, guys. I'm on the phone." His tone was sharp, revealing the weight he was trying to juggle. Jack leaned against the table, his hand subconsciously gripping the edge. Was this what being a father was? Torn between the responsibilities of the world and the innocent joys of the children. He remembered the moments when Emma would reach out to him, her fingers searching until she found his hand, guiding her through uncertainty. Wasn't he that like being a lighthouse amidst a storm? Richard ended the call, his eyes clouded, disappointment mingling with frustration. "I'm sorry," he said, drawing in a deep breath. As he returned to the table, his entire posture shifted. "Things are complicated at home." "No worries," Jack replied, his voice steady, although uncertainty thrummed in his chest. "Is everything okay? You seem off." Richard sighed, deep anxiety tracing lines across his face. "It's just I don't know if I can balance it all." Work's been overwhelming and the kids. His voice trailed off, distraction knitting his brow together. Jack couldn't ignore the brewing storm within Richard, neither could he change it. You know, Richard, sometimes it helps to share the load, he said softly, his voice more like a suggestion than a decree. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. We have our struggles too. Richard met his gaze, uncertainty swirling in his eyes. Maybe you're right. It was a flicker of hope, and for the first time, Jack realized they were standing on common ground. He had fought his own battles, lived through storms of doubt, yet here they were, two fathers searching for ways to connect. Why don't you join us for a bit? Jack gestured toward the kids, who were climbing over a mound of colorful foam shapes, squealing with laughter. Anna and Mark would love it. Richard hesitated but then nodded slowly, a hesitant smile creeping across his lips as he watched his children. Okay. Let us do it. As they approached the course, Jack felt a buzz of excitement in the air, fueled by the bubbling energy of the children. The hesitant despair that had anchored Richard's heart began to lift, piece by piece, as he joined them. Just as Richard took a step toward his children, a loud voice broke through their moment. You know, the Blakes shouldn't even be here. A stranger had wandered too close, attention drawn to Richard and his family, eyes narrowing with judgment. Jack turned sharply, outrage smoldering inside him. Who did this person think they were? Just when he thought progress was being made, doubt loomed once again. Richard, ignore them, Jack said, standing protectively between Richard and the stranger, unwilling to let negativity invade their gathering. But Richard stood frozen, the warmth of hope nearly snuffed out by the sting of a stranger's words. Could he really break free from the chains of judgment and isolation? The air hung heavy with tension. Jack felt the tightrope stretch beneath them, and every heartbeat felt decisive. Would Richard find the strength to forge a new path for himself and his children? The questions lingered, casting shadows over the golden warmth of an otherwise beautiful day. Richard's body seemed to shift, a heavy weight pressing down on his shoulders. The laughter from the children echoed like shards of glass in his ears, each giggle a reminder of the joy he feared to embrace. He felt Jack's protective stance, a quiet defiance against the stranger's judgment. Maybe we shouldn't be here, Richard muttered, his voice barely audible. The words clung to him, suffocating. What? No. Jack turned to him, his expression a mix of disbelief and determination. Look at them, Richard. They need you. You need this. The stranger scoffed, arms crossed skeptically. Parents like you make me sick. If you weren't so irresponsible, your kids wouldn't be stuck in this farce. Their words hung in the air, sharp enough to cut through. Anna, oblivious to the tension, tumbled onto the foam surfaces, erupting into laughter as Mark rushed to catapult himself after her. Yet Richard remained rooted, caught in a storm of self-doubt. Could he really prioritize what mattered most? Jack stepped forward, eyes fierce. You can either inspire your kids or let this stranger steal your moment. It's your choice. His words were a lifeline, pulling Richard from the depths of uncertainty. Hey! Leave us alone! Emma shouted, stepping in front of her dad, her little fists clenched defiantly. My daddy loves us. So shush. The stranger blanched, taken aback by the unexpected courage in a child's voice. It was a moment that froze time, the sound of Emma's conviction slicing through the murmurs of a nearby crowd. For Richard, it was as though something inside shifted significantly, the weight lifted just enough for him to take a deep breath. See? Jack said, a grin fighting its way through the intensity. They're fighting for you. So, fight back. Richard focused on his kids, their pure joy shining light into the shadows of his mind. It clicked, he could choose to join in their world, unshackled from the weight of anxiety. All right, he said, finally stepping forward, taking Jack's cue. Let us show them how it's done. Richard sprinted toward the obstacle course, surprising himself and the kids, and dove headfirst into the sea of foam. Anna squealed, pulling her father into a game of leaps and tugs, laughter shaping the air around them. Slowly, the crowd began to lose interest, the stranger retreating with a huff, voice drowned out by the infectious laughter surrounding Richard. For the first time in a long while, he felt the warmth of validation. A wave of relief washed over him. Jack stood back, watching the transformation unfold. It was a beautiful sight, two worlds colliding, fears fading, and laughter bouncing across the park like a kite on a sunny day. Just as Richard was about to pull Anna into a playful tickle, an unexpected sound pierced the warmth, the sharp ring of his phone echoing through the park. Horrified, Richard fumbled to retrieve it. Would this call drag him back into the depths he had just begun to escape? As he glanced at the screen, dread gripped him. He knew it was his boss. The last image, his children gleefully tumbling, flickered like a candle in the breeze. In this moment, would he choose them or the responsibilities that tied him down? The decision loomed before him, heavy and urgent. Would this be the moment he turned away from self-doubt, or would he let it engulf him again? The tension hung in the air, thicker than ever, leaving Richard at a crucial crossroads. Richard's heart raced as he stared at the screen, the name of his boss lighting up in stark contrast to the laughter that surrounded him. Every sound felt muted, every joy in the air distant, as if he were stuck behind a glass wall. He could see his kids, so vibrant and full of life, but the buzzing urgency of the work call loomed like a storm cloud overhead. "Daddy!" Anna shouted, her voice slicing through the fog of his thoughts. She reached for him, her tiny hands outstretched. That innocent look on her face, so trusting and full of love, was enough to turn Richard's insides. He felt the tension pulling him in two directions, one towards the demands of his job and the other anchored to the joy he had just begun to reclaim. "Richard, it's just a phone call," Jack said, breaking through his turmoil. "You're here right now with them. Don't let work steal your moment." That voice of reason pulled Richard back to the joyous chaos unfolding at his feet. He felt the tug of a smile forming, but it was laced with uncertainty. Could he really let this moment slip away? Responsibilities swirled in his mind, reminding him of deadlines and the weight of expectations. Yet, another pulse, brighter and more exhilarated, encouraged him to reach out to his children. He accepted the challenge posed by that first step into the foam pit. What would happen if he chose the laughter over the phone call? In that moment, he paused, breathless. "Daddy, come on!" Emma called, jumping up and down as if trying to pull him into the sparkle of laughter. Richard closed his eyes, the memories of work hovering like a dark fog. What would it feel like to truly let go? He whispered to himself, without a second thought, he silenced the call. The little vibrations from the device ceased, and it felt as if a weight had been thrown from his shoulders. It was a small act, but in embracing this choice, he felt the shift, a new energy yearning for freedom, hope, joy. Richard dove back into the foam, laughing as he landed beside his children. They erupted into giggles, pulling him into their delightful chaos. Every giggle, every squeal, sank the last remnants of his anxiety deeper into the soft foam. The world shrank to just these moments, a simple but profound truth. This was what mattered. "Look at you!" Jack cheered on the sidelines, enthusiasm spilling over even more. "You did it! Welcome back!" Richard's heart soared, a full-bodied rush of relief and happiness. Together, they lost themselves in the sea of color and joy, tumbling and playing until they were breathless, rolling waves of laughter merging into one harmonious sound. Nothing else existed but the bond they shared. But just when the laughter reached its peak, Richard caught a glimpse of the stranger from earlier, lingering at the edge of the foam pit. The contempt on their face ignited an uncomfortable flicker inside him, the worry that maybe he had made the wrong choice. Would he truly be able to balance being present at home while meeting his career's demands? Could he contain that lingering fear of inadequacy that wrapped around him like a vine? As Richard pulled Anna close and watched Mark climb up for another leap, a new thought ignited. What if he could reshape everything, the way he worked, the way he loved, the way he lived? Richard's mind buzzed, turning this new idea over and over. Yet there were still shadows to face as he found himself once again gazing toward the stranger, confronting not just their judgment, but his own internal struggles as well. Was he ready for that fight? Would he seek to transform this fleeting moment into something lasting? The foam pit swirled around him, but a new storm brewed within. The real battle was only just beginning, one that entangled joy, fear, hope, and the courage to confront it all. The air hung thick with anticipation. Could he brave the next step? Richard stumbled slightly as he shifted his gaze back from the stranger, trying to shake off the creeping doubt that lingered like an unwanted guest. Anna, sensing her father's distraction, squeezed his hand and pulled him toward the foam-filled mountain where Mark was attempting another daring leap. "Come on, Daddy. Watch this!" Mark shouted, his eyes sparkling with mischief and excitement. Richard grinned, his heart swelling with pride. The innocence of his children's joy sparked a flicker of determination in him. In this moment, the worries that consumed him began to dissipate. He positioned himself at the base of the foam mountain, eyes locked on Mark's fearless form as he climbed higher and higher. Just before jumping, Mark glanced back, a huge smile plastered on his face. "You're gonna see the best jump yet." Imagine that. Richard thought. Just a simple jump could carry so much excitement. He closed his eyes to embrace the moment fully, the laughter echoing around him, filling his heart with warmth. "Okay." Richard called out to his son. "Let us see it." With a mighty whoop, Mark leaped into the air. Time seemed to suspend as he soared, arms flailing, landing with a glorious crash into the soft foam. The air burst with laughter, and before Richard knew it, he was swept up in the rush again. "We should all jump," Emma declared suddenly, her face lighting up with that relentless enthusiasm only children could muster. "Let us all be superheroes." Richard's heart quickened. The foam pit became their fictional battleground where they could save the day, where each jump signified strength, power, and love, a world where they could conquer anything together. He felt the challenge pulse through him again. "All right. Superheroes unite!" Richard shouted, diving into the pit alongside his children, the foam enveloping him like a warm embrace. Laughter erupted anew and they engaged in a playful war against imaginary villains. In that frolicsome chaos, he felt the weight of doubt lifting, replaced with a growing excitement about what lay ahead, yet, the image of the stranger remained etched in his mind, a reminder of the expectations that loomed just outside the realm of this joy. Richard remembered their eyes, the judgment they seemed to exude, and that flicker of contempt. Just as he was lost in laughter, their gaze seemed to pull him back into reality. What if he failed? What if he couldn't find that balance he was yearning for? Just as the last thought threatened to cloud his happiness, Anna reached for him, her little arms wrapping around his neck tightly. "Daddy! You're the best superhero ever." The sweetness in her voice shattered the last remnants of his fear. In that tender moment, he felt as if he could fly, just like Mark did moments ago. Instead of pushing those feelings away, he embraced them. He wasn't just a father having fun, he was actively reshaping his life, redefining what it meant to be present. This joy was enough, it had to be. "Okay, troops," he shouted, puffing his chest with mock seriousness, channeling the superhero persona he wore in their game. "We need a plan to defeat the villains in the real world." The children cheered, bouncing around him, their giggles merging with his voice in a melody of pure happiness. Richard felt countdowns ticking within him, the dawn of a new fight stirring. Together, they began to strategize, laughter fading into whispers of what-ifs and dreams. But outside their bubble, the world demanded attention. How long until the storm clouds returned? As Richard settled into a rhythm with his kids, he realized with panic that life wasn't just about the joy of the moment, it was also about sustaining it. Deep down, the seeds of transformation were planted, but the first real test loomed just beyond their foam-filled sanctuary. As they plotted their superhero missions with boundless passion, Richard felt the whispers of that impending reality edging closer. What would he truly become when this beautiful chaos ended? Could he carry the joys of laughter back into the world of work, or would the shadows get the chance to reclaim him? And in that moment, The foam pit became more than just a play area, it became the battlefield where his future was waiting to be fought for, each screech of delight resounding with the promise of what was at stake, leaving him at the edge of a choice yet to be made. The foam pit teemed with joy, and for a while, the outside world faded. Richard emerged from their imaginary battle, breathless but blissful, catching a rare moment of clarity. His children beamed at him, their little faces flushed with excitement. He was wrapped in love, suspended in a bubble of laughter and play, but the weight of reality lingered like a shadow at the edge of his thoughts. "Okay, superheroes," he called, feeling a surge of energy, "let's regroup." As he gathered them for a strategy session, Mark leaned against the foam wall, his eyes bright, clearly thinking about their next mission. "What if we save the whole world, Daddy?" "Like, all of it?" Richard laughed, ruffling Mark's hair. "Well, that's a big task. But every mission needs a plan." With glimmers of their futures ahead, the kids began tossing ideas around like confetti. Emma suggested they build a bridge made of dreams, while Mark proposed a rescue operation for lost toys. In their minds, the world was overflowing with adventure, and for that moment, it felt like the burdens of adulthood would stay at bay, but reality began creeping in. Richard's smile faltered for a moment as he thought about looming deadlines and the unrelenting pressure waiting outside those foam barriers. It was too easy to lose himself in their world of fantasy and forget the responsibilities he had. "Hey, how about we have a real adventure tomorrow?" His voice carried a subtle hint of hesitance. "We could visit the park. Bring a picnic. Can we chase squirrels, too?" Anna squealed. "Definitely. Superheroes chase all kinds of food," Richard replied, pushing away the rising doubt. They finalized plans, laughter intertwining with excitement, temporarily glossing over the worry that his life couldn't sustain this happiness. Emma raised her small hand, as if asking a question in class. "Daddy, what if you could be a superhero, like, all the time?" That question hung in the air, echoing deeper than any foam pit could contain. The laughter faded a little as Richard contemplated the weight of her words. Could he transform his life to hold on to moments like these, to fit the label of superhero outside the confines of play? The thought sent a thrill of hope and anxiety racing through him. He had spent years chasing the idea of success, but that success often came at a cost. The demands of work, the need for validation, they loomed like ominous clouds threatening to snuff out the joy. Would he always feel this tug-of-war between what he needed to do and what he wanted to be? "Of course I can," he said finally, his voice more steady than he felt inside. "But it takes work, even for superheroes, to keep this fun going." Mark nodded earnestly, taking in his father's words. "Then we'll help. Right, Anna?" Anna beamed. "Yeah. Superheroes always help." Richard smiled, his heart racing. What if they were right? What if he could build this life with their guidance? It felt like a leap into the unknown, but he'd jumped many times before. Perhaps this time, he'd land back on solid ground, closer to who he wanted to be. He breathed deeply, summoning the courage that brushed against his doubt. "All right, team. Superheroes don't only play, we act." That thought sparked an electric charge. What actions would he take when they left this plastic paradise? As they piled out of the foam pit, laughter still ringing in his ears, Richard wondered if he could rise above the expectations that haunted him. With his heart racing, he realized the very act of choosing joy had become an act of defiance against the judgments that lingered outside. He wanted that fight to continue when they left. Richard felt the urge to stand taller, to feel the weight of being a parent shift into armor. But the bigger question loomed also: what would he find when he faced the real world, and more importantly, would he have the strength to fight through it? Outside, the bustle of people filled the air, and Richard felt that storm of doubt begin to swirl again. It was calling, but he wasn't ready to answer. Tomorrow could be the start of something incredible, or it could bring the familiar shadows creeping back. In what would his first step look like, and could he truly redefine what it meant to be a superhero, in both their world and his? As the family stepped onto the sidewalk, the sunlight bathed them in warmth. The thrill from their imaginary escapade still clung to the air like the last hints of laughter echoing in Richard's mind. He felt a tug at his heart, a blend of hope and anxiety. "Let us keep that energy going into tomorrow," he declared, trying to mask his uncertainty with enthusiasm. The kids bounced ahead, leading the way, their voices rising above the clamor of the city. "Race you to the car," Mark shouted, his small legs propelling him forward. Richard smiled as he watched them sprint, but inside, he could feel the weight of the day ahead. A mountain of emails, meetings, and looming deadlines awaited him. Would he really break free enough to embrace the park adventure they planned? "Daddy! Come on!" Anna's bright call snapped him back to the present. He rushed after the kids, their carefree joy infectious, carrying him further from his worries. That I in the car, as they buckled themselves in, Richard could no longer suppress the questions that looped in his head. Would he be able to build a bridge made of dreams as Emma had suggested? Or would the harsh currents of life sweep those dreams away? "Daddy, what do superheroes eat?" Emma asked, her big eyes full of wonder as they pulled out of the lot. "Well, they need lots of energy. So, they eat everything." He tried to sound just as playful, his heart nudged by her sincerity. "But we'll have our own superhero snack tomorrow. How about fruit and sandwiches?" "Yum!" They cheered. Richard's heart swelled. If nothing else, he could promise them that. A slice of happiness could sometimes be found in the simplest things. After all, when they arrived home, the laundry piled high reminded him of reality crashing back in. The floors needed vacuuming, and dinner required preparation. The toys scattered over every surface whispered of chaos in their own little way. As he moved through their cluttered home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to change something. Richard paused, glancing at the calendar hanging on the fridge. "Tomorrow is the start of our adventure," he reminded himself, taking a deep breath. After dinner, once the kids were tucked into bed, he found himself in the quiet of the living room. Peeking out through the window, he saw the twilight colors painting the sky. His own reflection stared back, a mix of determination and doubt. Could he balance the lives of a father and a professional? Doing work he was proud of, yet still being present for his kids. He longed to merge those worlds but felt like he constantly struggled to not let one overshadow the other. With a sigh, he grabbed a notebook from the table, ruing it wasn't a magic wand that could simply cast away the chaos of adult life. Yet, it could help him outline a new path forward. That night, he scribbled ideas for how to become the superhero his children believed him to be. A plan took shape, one that involved not just laughter and play but also small, tangible steps toward making a life he could genuinely claim as his own. As he wrote, the burdens felt lighter, the laughter from earlier still echoing in his soul, whispering hope and possibility. But just as he was settling down, a sudden ping from his phone caught his attention. A message from work, urgent and demanding. It was as if the moment of calm was shattered, reminding him that escape was always just a heartbeat away, but reality was quick to drag him back. He stared at the screen, grappling with the tug of that familiar sensation, the call to duty versus the desire for connection. Could he break free? And if he did, what would it cost him? The answers hung in the air like unspoken promises, waiting for the morning light to guide him. As he switched off the lamp, one thought lingered: was tomorrow even possible, or were they just dreams too big for reality to contain? The morning light seeped into Richard's room, casting a soft glow on the walls. He blinked awake, the lingering shadows of doubt dimming as the joyful chatter of his children filtered through the house. Today was the day. He jumped out of bed, a sense of urgency pushing him to prepare. The kids were counting on him to turn their adventure into reality. He dressed quickly, thoughts swirling around the promise he'd made to himself. Today was about connection. Today was about being their superhero. As he made his way to the kitchen, the smell of pancakes filled the air. Emma was flipping them like a pro, a big smile plastered on her face. Mark was at the table, carefully pouring syrup into an elaborate design on his plate. "Good morning," Richard said, his heart racing with excitement. Daddy! Look at this! Mark exclaimed, pointing to his syrup masterpiece. Wow, that's a work of art! Richard replied, leaning down to admire it. The laughter and camaraderie enveloped him, pushing the work worries to the back of his mind. If only for a moment. After breakfast, they gathered the supplies for their park day. As they stuffed sandwiches and fruit into a backpack, Richard noticed Anna floating around, a little quieter than usual. She looked up at him, an earnest expression on her face. Daddy, can superheroes cry? Richard paused, taken aback. Well, sometimes they do. Even superheroes have feelings. It's what makes them human. Even if they're sad. She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, sweetheart. And it's okay to feel sad sometimes. It makes the happy moments even better. She nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. They finished packing, Richard's heart swelling with pride, especially knowing each of them held on to their emotions in a way that felt right. As they arrived at the park, the familiar sounds of laughter and joy filled the air. The scent of fresh grass mixed with the sweet aroma of cotton candy wafted in from the nearby stand. Richard felt a sense of renewal. This was where adventurous dreams could blossom. The children dashed toward a giant jungle gym, their laughter echoing as they climbed and slid. Richard watched as they played, absorbing their happiness like sunshine soaking through his skin. But then he spotted a group of parents gathered nearby, their serious conversations echoing off the trees. Could he really make a life where he didn't feel the strain of his responsibilities even at the park? Was it possible to establish meaningful connections without being weighed down by work worries? He held on to the thought, pushing it aside as he joined the kids. Swinging higher and higher, he felt the child within him emerge unbothered by tomorrow's deadlines. For the first time in a long time, he let go of his doubts, focusing solely on the joy of the moment. Suddenly, a playful shout broke his reverie. Look, Daddy! I'm flying! Emma exclaimed, soaring off the swing. Richard grinned. Just be careful, superhero. He called back, feeling a swell of warmth in his chest. But then, a sudden movement caught his eye. A young boy, seemingly lost, wandered near the edge of the park. His eyes were scanning the grounds, desperation etched into his face. Richard's heart twisted at the sight. Here was a moment he could either ignore or embrace. Hey! He called to his kids, pointing toward the boy. Why don't we go see if he needs some help? As they approached, Richard felt the weight of his responsibilities tugging at him again. Yet, looking at his children, he realized this was his chance to teach them about empathy, about being heroes in their own right. Each step felt heavier, yet the thrill of discovery powered him forward. Would this be a moment that forever changed not just their day, but their lives? Richard took a deep breath, preparing for what lay ahead. Could a simple act of kindness reshape their adventure into something greater? As they neared the boy, a mix of anticipation and trepidation knotted in his stomach. What they found next would challenge their view of family and connection in ways they hardly dared dream. The sun smiled brightly, casting a golden haze over the park as Richard and his children approached the lost boy. He was staring wide-eyed, clutching a toy truck like it was his lifeline. Are you okay? Richard asked gently, kneeling down to meet the boy at eye level. A quiver danced on the boy's lips, mirroring Richard's own anxiety that had brewed in silence. I'm looking for my mom, he sniffed, his little voice barely rising above the gentle rustling of the trees. Richard glanced at Emma and Mark, whose concern etched deep lines of empathy on their faces. It hit him this was exactly what they had talked about the night before. They could be superheroes, not just for fun but in ways that truly mattered. Okay. Let us help you find her, Richard said, his own heart swelling with purpose. The kids rallied around, offering words of encouragement and smiles that could light up any room. What does she look like? Richard asked, keeping his voice warm. She's wearing a pink dress. The boy responded, brightening just a little. With that, the little team set off on a mission, scanning the park, calling out for the boy's mother while searching high and low. As they worked together, Richard felt his own worries drifting away, replaced by a collective determination. They split up, Emma and Noah scurrying ahead while Richard stayed close to the little boy. As they passed families enjoying picnics and children gleefully playing, the community around him transformed into something vibrant and bright, filled with potential for connection. After what felt like an eternity, a woman's voice broke through the fog of uncertainty. "Max!" she called, scanning the crowd with panic. The boy's eyes lit up. "Mom!" He bolted toward her, and Richard felt the wave of relief wash over him like a warm breeze. Instinctively, he followed, his heart racing with the momentum of their shared journey. The woman knelt to embrace Max, tears of gratitude flooding her eyes. Richard stood back, watching the moment unfold, a beautiful dance of happiness. In that instant, he understood. This connection, this community, was what he craved. He caught Emma's eyes sparkling with pride, and a laugh bubbled from Noah's lips, echoing the pure joy around him. They had fostered something real today. The girl in the pink dress turned her gaze toward him, gratitude radiating from her. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You helped him find me. That means more than you know." Richard shrugged, own heart swelling. It was nothing, really. Just helping out. But it was about so much more than help. It was about showing his children how to be present. It was about building a legacy of kindness and community. And, somehow, it was about him learning to let go of pride and embrace vulnerability. The day continued to unfold in a whirlwind of laughter and connections. They played, shared sandwiches with other families, and soaked in the community spirit that had long eluded Richard. Time stretched before them, filled with every possible laughter, joy, and new friendships forged through shared experiences. As the sun began to set, colors painting the sky with strokes of hope, Richard felt the exhilaration of having anchored his values into actions. This summer, he announced as they settled on a bench, surrounded by friends they had met that day, "Let's make it our mission to help others. To become the superheroes our community needs." Emma and Noah nodded, excitement bubbling over. Anna squeezed his hand tightly, a smile brightening her face. They might have started their day with uncertainty, but they were leaving it filled with purpose. Richard finally embraced the weight of what it meant to juggle responsibilities, joy, and connection. And he realized, as he watched his children's faces alight with excitement and possibility, that this was the real American dream, a life intertwined with love, laughter, and the courage to show kindness, even when it approached uncertainty. With newfound determination burning in his heart, Richard knew they could face whatever life threw their way. Together. As he held his children closer, feeling their warmth, he vowed to make every playdate as magical as the one they just experienced. And as the final light of day dipped below the horizon, a thought lingered in Richard's mind: tomorrow they'd wake as superheroes again, ready to fight the good fight one beautiful moment at a time. Now, we've reached the end, but there's still so much more to discover. You need to subscribe now to our channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, so we can continue bringing you powerful tales. Comment your reactions and feelings about this heartfelt ending. Your thoughts matter. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, we can create a community that inspires one another every day.